There are documents that were never meant to exist. Not to be copied. Not to be spoken of. And if ever uncovered by accident, they were to be buried beneath 3 layers of holy seals and relics. Yet, on November 4, 2022, a strange manuscript surfaced within the restricted halls of the Vatican secret archives. It was listed under no catalogue. Assigned no retrieval code. Just a bundle of handwritten parchment, bound in sheepskin, marked with a dark crimson seal. V_Sangue_3, loosely translated as the Third Blood Entity File. There was no author. No annotations. Only a cracked wax seal and a scratched Latin inscription. Hoc non demon est, said nec homo. This is no demon, but neither is it human. The contents were so disturbing that the first reader reportedly required hospitalization for psychological trauma. Inside was the sworn testimony of a monk from the late 14th century, a man who claimed to have witnessed, with his own eyes, a creature imprisoned deep beneath the earth of San Raffaele Monastery. The creature did not die, nor did it live. It did not breathe, yet it prayed. It did not age, but its blood-red eyes had watched far too many lifetimes end in fear. It was once human. But no longer. It craved blood. It recoiled from holy light, yet still recited scripture. Within the document, church officials referred to it as a fractured being, an unclassified form of biological heresy. But outside those sacred walls, the world has long called it by another name. A name older, darker, and far more unsettling. Vampire. Not the romanticized figure from novels. Not the ghostly myth of folklore. But a fragment of truth, sealed away by the church for centuries, and now clawing its way back into the light. And if what's written in V_Sangue_3 is true, then maybe, the legend was never just a legend. Part 1, Origin of the Document and the San Raffaele Monastery. V_Sangue_3 did not emerge from nothing. It once existed, at a specific time, in a specific place, before it was erased from all official records. That place bears a name that few now remember, San Raffaele Monastery, hidden deep in the mountains of Umbria, central Italy. The monastery was constructed in the late 12th century by an ascetic branch of the Benedictine order. Its location never appeared on any pilgrimage maps. It welcomed no visitors. It had no appointed parish priest. Locals referred to it only as the House of the Watcher, a title no one could clearly explain. Then, in the 17th century, Pope Clement VIII suddenly issued a decree for its permanent closure, citing only evidence of severe heretical influence. No official explanation was ever recorded. No dissolution ceremony. Only a quiet night in which guards arrived, and sacred relics were carried in. According to the opening lines of the V_Sangue_3 manuscript, the document is a hand-copied excerpt from an original record stored at San Raffaele in the year 1395. The author was a monk named Dom Emilianis, once the chief archivist of the Vatican Library during the 1380s. He was later excommunicated from the church without public explanation. His name was removed from all clerical records. Yet the final lines in the manuscript, believed to be written by him, spoke volumes. I do not wish to betray the faith. But faith cannot be built on denial. If this creature is a curse, then we must understand the nature of that curse. If it is evidence, then it must not be forgotten. Dom Emilianis was not sent to San Raffaele to serve. He was sent there to guard. And in the deepest chamber of the monastery, a crypt known as Crypta Rubra, he encountered it. According to the manuscript, it did not eat, did not sleep, did not decay. Its flesh remained soft, its eyes forever open. And one moonlit night, it whispered in ancient Latin, Ad hoc hic sum. I am still here. There were no illustrations. No official name. Only a crude symbol sketched in the margins, a circle containing 3 drops of blood and an inverted cross. A symbol never found in any known scripture. But it matched precisely a carved image found on a slab of limestone in the monastery's underground crypt. Discovered by accident in 1974, then immediately confiscated by Vatican representatives. Part 2, Contents leaked from the V_Sangue_3 file. Unlike an official investigation or theological treatise, V_Sangue_3 is a fragmented compilation, a patchwork of journal entries, ritual annotations, confessions, and incoherent passages written as if in a trance or under duress. Yet, buried within the hundreds of handwritten lines and cryptic symbols, three distinct sections can be identified. 1. The testimony, a being that does not die, but has never truly lived. The first section is a handwritten account by Dom Emilianis, dated 1397. Its opening line sends a chill down the spine. I do not write to warn. I write to bear witness. For the thing beneath us does not sleep. Emilianus recounts his first descent into Crypta Rubra, which he describes as, unlike any human-made structure, the stone walls showed no tool marks and remained damp despite the absence of water. At the heart of the crypt stood a lidless black stone coffin, engraved with blood-related sigils and a distorted crucifix. Inside, a figure lay motionless, its body shriveled like a centuries-old corpse, yet its eyes remained open, dark red, still, and following anyone who entered. According to Emilianus, the being did not decompose, showed no signs of breathing, but its flesh remained soft and occasionally twitched, especially during nights of the blood moon. It spoke no words. But it had thoughts. It placed sounds directly into my mind, in a language ancient beyond measure, and yet I understood every word. The message, repeated endlessly, was this. I was betrayed. I did not deserve death. But I was denied life. 2. Anatomical deviance, a being with human genes. But not entirely human. The second section appears to be a scientific analysis, the author's signature erased, likely written by someone affiliated with Vatican scholars. It outlines the biological traits of the entity. Does not decay over time. Unaffected by holy water, but reacts violently to sunlight. Pale skin with a high concentration of blood pigmentation around the mouth and chest. Entire dental structure consists of sharpened, beast-like fangs, though no signs of flesh consumption are evident. Most disturbing of all is the note that its blood possesses the ability to reanimate dead cells when applied to human tissue, inducing prolonged hallucinations and religious delusions. A marginal note, scribbled in black ink, adds, if it was ever human, it was the first to be cursed. And if this is the origin of the immortal kind, then perhaps the legend of Cain is more than mere symbolism. 3. The ritual of sealing, the blood rite and Vatican's silent intervention. The final section contains a detailed instruction for the sealing ritual, to be performed only by 3 monks sworn to eternal silence, and witnessed by a cardinal of high rank. The ritual is named, Ritus Sanguinis Sigillum, the seal of the blood rite. The steps include pouring 3 drops of blood from a living person into the entity's mouth. Reciting the Gloria prayer 3 times, while holding an inverted crucifix. Placing a blood-inscribed talisman upon the entity's forehead. Finalizing the ritual with 7 sacred oaths, each carved into the bones of the officiant. A final warning, written in bold red ink, follows. If the blood used belongs to a sinner, the entity will awaken. If the ritual is interrupted, the oaths shall turn to curses. The document ends with a single, ominous line, no signature, no further comment. Do not burn. Do not bury. Do not release. It cannot die. It can only be forgotten. V_Sangue_3 is not just a manuscript. It is a buried warning. A question that has survived for centuries. If it cannot die, then when will it awaken? Part 3, Internal reactions within the Vatican, a debate never allowed to surface. The Vatican is a sealed machine. Every piece of information follows a protocol. Every document is under control. And every deviation is resolved, in silence. But when a copy of V_Sangue_3 resurfaced on November 4, 2022, it triggered a silent earthquake within the heart of the Holy See. There were no press releases. No official statements. Only encrypted messages, closed-door meetings, and cardinals awake through the night, hunched over pages stained with the color of dried blood. 1. The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, on the edge of schism. Within 3 weeks of the file's discovery, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith held 2 emergency sessions, both undocumented. According to an anonymous source within the Curia, the debate fractured the Vatican into 2 clear factions. The conservative faction, led by an Italian cardinal, dismissed the document as heretical folklore, likely a product of medieval superstition. It was, they said, best left forgotten to avoid stirring theological panic among the faithful. The skeptical scholars, a group of younger theologians, highlighted the file's uncanny internal consistency and detailed alignment with obscure carvings found in Romania, Greece, and ancient Egypt. They argued, no one could fabricate a blood ritual that precisely matches inscriptions found across continents unless they had seen it sourced from something real. A striking quote from the personal journal of Bishop Anton de Bellis, dated November 17, 2022, reads, "If this entity is real, it does not merely threaten doctrine. It reshapes the entire foundation of theology, life, death, and the concept of redemption." 2. Intervention from the Secretariat of State. The situation escalated when the Vatican Secretariat of State, which typically handles matters of international diplomacy, issued a classified directive on November 21, 2022. The message included 3 immediate orders. Cease all further analysis of the V_Sangue_3 file. Seal and restrict the document under religious security protocols. Forbid any public discussion of its contents in theological forums. One line in the directive, printed in red, was reportedly lifted from an ancient confidentiality edict. That which cannot be destroyed must be denied in silence. 3. A suspicious disappearance inside the Vatican. On November 25, 2022, Father Federico Salvi, the first to open and translate most of V_Sangue_3, vanished from his Vatican residence. His office was sealed. His computer was confiscated. The Church issued no public statement, only a brief comment from the spokesperson. Father Salvi has been reassigned to a contemplative retreat in an undisclosed location. But insiders reported that shortly before his disappearance, Salvi had messaged a colleague on the translation team. "If this file is accurate, we didn't just imprison something. We're hiding a form of life that exists outside the plan of salvation." 4. Debate silenced, and fear buried deeper. After Salvi's disappearance, all internal discussions concerning V_Sangue_3 were abruptly terminated. The manuscript was returned to the Vatican secret archives, this time re-encrypted under a rare Pontifex Black classification, used only for material that could threaten the global foundation of faith. Scholars who had accessed the contents were barred from leaving Vatican grounds for 6 months. A source close to the matter stated, "No one was threatened. They were simply reminded, some truths, if spoken, would not save souls, only destroy the faith of millions." The Vatican chose silence. No denial. No confirmation. Just a door, quietly closed again on a truth that should never escape. And thus, V_Sangue_3, one of the most controversial documents ever discovered, was once more buried beneath the ancient stones, where it had remained hidden for over 6 centuries. But once truth has been let into the light, can it ever be sealed away forever? Part 4, The Mystery of Emilianus, the monk erased from Vatican history. Every line in the V_Sangue_3 file is unsettling. But the name attached to its authorship is what made it impossible for the Vatican to completely suppress the document. Dom Emilianis. A monk who once served as chief archivist of the Vatican Library in the late 14th century. A scholar fluent in classical Chinese, ancient Greek, and Coptic. A man once praised by Pope Urban VI as the guardian of the Lord's languages. And yet, every trace of him has vanished. 1. A name erased from every record. No date of birth. No record of ordination. No mention in any clerical registry or ecclesiastical chronicle from the 14th century onward. But in 1904, during renovations beneath the Apostolic Palace, a worker uncovered a vellum index page, bearing a faded black ink note. Emilianus, Codex 17, Theta. Do not restore. Do not remove from lower archives. That single line remains the only verifiable proof that Emilianus ever existed, and that he had been deliberately buried in darkness at the heart of the Church's light. 2. The Watchman, or the Betrayer. Fragments of Emilianus' confession in the V_Sangue_3 file suggest he was not merely a scribe, but a living witness to the entity sealed beneath San Raffaele. In a trembling passage, he writes, "I am the only one who still hears it. And when the fathers commanded its silence, it was my hand that pressed the seal to its brow." To the Church, this may have seemed an act of obedience, a spiritual sacrifice. But in his own words, it reads more like a dialogue between two forgotten beings, one human, the other, something that once was. One final quote from his confession remains etched in crimson ink. "We did not cast it aside because it was evil. We cast it aside, because it reminded us that faith does not always redeem." 3. A lost painting, the last remaining clue. In the Monte Cassino Monastery Museum, there hangs an unsigned painting, dated 1472, labeled only "The Gatekeeper." It depicts a solitary monk standing before a sealed stone door, holding a lantern nearly extinguished, its light fading to darkness. Etched above the doorway are Latin words carved into the rock. "Non est porta inferni, sed carcere eternitatis." This is not the gate of hell, but a prison of eternity. Many modern historians believe the figure in the painting is Dom Emilianis. And the door he stands before, is likely the entrance to Crypta Rubra, the deepest chamber beneath San Raffaele. For Emilianus, the gatekeeper history tried to bury. No one knows when he died. There is no grave. No official record of excommunication. Just a blank space stretched across 6 centuries, where the man who once held the key to a truth beyond theology was mercilessly erased. And in a bitter paradox, the only man brave enough to document the truth became the first to be forgotten. Dom Emilianis is absent from every book of history. But his final words still echo in the shadows of the Vatican, where only stone walls and dried blood remain as witness. "I locked it away. But someone else will open it." Part 5. Strange phenomena surrounding the ruins of the monastery. San Raffaele Monastery was officially sealed in 1604. The last monks were ordered to leave in a single night, forbidden to take any personal belongings. Shortly afterward, the entire site was declared inviolable territory by decree of Pope Clement VIII, citing the need to preserve theological integrity. For centuries, it remained untouched. But as the boundaries between religion and archaeology began to blur in the 20th century, a few daring scholars attempted to breach the forgotten grounds. What they found was something no one truly wanted to believe was real. 1. The 1974 expedition, a moan with no source. In June 1974, a team of 3 French archaeologists, led by Professor Antoine Belland, under sponsorship from the European Institute of Cultural Studies, discreetly entered the ruins of San Raffaele. Their cover story, an architectural study of early Romanesque structures. 3 days later, the team reported several disturbing discoveries. Stone walls beneath the crypt bore blood sigils identical to those described in the V_Sangue_3 file. A carved limestone slab showed 3 drops of blood and an inverted cross, perfectly matching the seal described in the blood rite. And on the 4th night, the team heard a low, human-like moan emerging from a deep stone fissure, though there was no wind, no wildlife, and no one beneath. From Belland's journal. It wasn't wind. It was a voiceless cry. None of us dared to answer it. The expedition was abruptly terminated. All records and samples were confiscated by Vatican representatives 2 days later. Belland refused all interviews. He disappeared in 1976, reportedly while traveling to Rome. 2 unforgettable traces, and repeating signs. Between 1991 and 2007, locals living near the Umbrian Mountains began reporting strange and recurring phenomena around the San Raffaele ruins. Forest animals found dead with no visible wounds, but completely drained of blood. Hunters reported hearing ancient Latin prayers whispered across the hills during full moons at midnight. Children were found sleepwalking and drawing the 3 blood drop symbol, though they had no exposure to Latin or the symbol's imagery. In 2002, a German independent filmmaker named Karl Meisner recorded a red light spiraling above the ruins at 3 a.m. The footage was confiscated the moment he submitted it to the Vatican embassy in Berlin. Meisner vanished from public life soon after. His last recorded statement was, "I don't know what I saw. I only know this. It wasn't meant to be awakened." 3. What the Vatican cannot deny, but will never confirm. Under growing pressure from independent researchers, the Vatican issued a rare public statement in 2009. San Raffaele Monastery is a deteriorated religious site. Entry is strongly discouraged for reasons of safety. But internally, Vatican authorities were taking far more deliberate action. Temporary no-fly zones were established over the area. Inspection teams were deployed regularly under the pretense of heritage preservation. A specialized task force of priests from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith was formed, trained in dealing with extraordinary religious anomalies. A former member of the team, speaking anonymously, revealed, "We weren't there to preserve anything. We were there to make sure nothing got out." 4. A legend that still breathes. More than 400 years have passed since the monastery was sealed. But the legend of the imprisoned entity continues to simmer among the local populace. They do not speak its name. They do not speak of it after sundown. But in whispered folk tales, one warning remains. If the ground trembles one night, and no thunder follows, lock your doors. Do not look out the window. For something may have opened its eyes. San Raffaele is now little more than ruins. But the secret beneath it has never truly rotted away. And though it lies buried beneath stone, relics, and sacred seals, one question remains, unanswered and unspoken. Is the entity described in the V_Sangue_3 file still resting below? Part 6, Vampire, no longer just a myth. For centuries, the image of the vampire has embedded itself deep within Western culture. From Balkan folklore and Gothic novels to the dazzling spectacle of Hollywood cinema. But strip away the drama and the commercialized fangs, and what remains? An immortal being. That does not breathe. Does not age. Does not die. A creature existing in the space between man and demon. Thirsting for blood, yet carrying the memory of humanity. The question is no longer, are vampires real? But rather, if they exist, how long have we misunderstood them? 1. From folklore to classified files, a striking convergence. Folklorists have recorded at least 47 distinct descriptions of vampire-like entities across Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and even Asia, long before fiction ever took hold. Across those accounts, 3 characteristics appear with uncanny consistency. The body does not decay after death. They are harmed by light. They possess the ability to manipulate human will through prolonged exposure. The entity in the V_Sangue_3 file, sealed beneath San Raffaele, possesses all of these traits. But it also displays cognitive telepathy, and a resistance to traditional exorcisms. One Vatican scholar, in a private analysis, stated, "We framed the vampire as a demonic fairy tale, so we wouldn't have to face the possibility that it was once human, just like us." 2. Unholy spirit, or biological mutation. If the being in V_Sangue_3 is real, then it may not be the demonic abomination the Church labels it to be. Preliminary biological notes in the file describe anomalous cellular density, rapid regenerative capability, and genetic traits with no identifiable human lineage. A covert geneticist affiliated with Vatican researchers once proposed. This could be the result of a failed ancient experiment, or a divergent evolutionary branch. Not a creature from hell, but a biological mistake made by man himself. Are we looking at a forgotten subspecies of humanity, one that once lived alongside our ancestors? A species deliberately erased from the human story because its existence defied every religious and scientific boundary of life and death. 3. The Bible and the unfilled gaps. Nowhere in the New Testament does it claim immortality is exclusive to the righteous. In fact, in Genesis, Cain, the first murderer, is not punished by death, but by eternal isolation. Some esoteric theologians speculate that the blood of Cain may be an early attempt to describe a condition of non-sanctified immortality. A condition later mythologized as the vampire. If immortality did not come from God, then where did it come from? 4. Why did the Church choose to seal, not destroy? If the Vatican had knowledge of such a being, or had interacted with one, then the most unsettling question becomes, why wasn't it destroyed? The V_Sangue_3 file offers a chilling answer. It cannot be burned. It cannot be cut. It cannot be exorcised. For it does not come from hell. Aemilianus wrote. We tried every rite. The light did not banish it. The prayers did not move it. It did not defy faith. It simply stood there, waiting. This entity exists outside the theological classification system, leaving the Vatican with two impossible options. To acknowledge its existence, thereby admitting a hole in centuries of doctrine. Or to silence it, because it is living proof of a truth the Church chose never to tell. 5. If the vampire is not a demon, then what are we to it? If the being remains sealed, if it carries memories, languages, and knowledge older than the Bible itself, then perhaps modern humanity is not the pinnacle of creation, but a shadow living in the ruins of a censored history. And if that entity ever awakens, its first words may not be a threat, but a truth we were never ready to hear. Vampires, no longer the fanged monsters of horror fiction, but possibly a suppressed branch of human history, buried by those who once claimed to be the keepers of divine light. So the final question is no longer, is it real? But rather, do we fear it, or do we fear what it reveals about us? A leaked file. An unnamed entity. A monastery sealed shut. And one man, Dom Emilianis, erased from history as if he had never existed. We have traced the path of a story pushed to the deepest corners of time, buried not by chaos or coincidence, but by those who once vowed to spread the light. And yet, in that darkness, it may not be evil that waits for us, but a truth that has no name. Was it forgotten, or was it chosen to be forgotten? The Church has remained silent. Mainstream history offers no mention. The witnesses have vanished. And those who ask questions, often disappear with them. Still, the existence of the V_Sangue_3 file, the matching ancient symbols, and the strange phenomena surrounding San Raffaele all point to one chilling possibility. That something once lived, and perhaps still lives, that has never truly died. Not quite a demon. No longer a man. And beyond the grasp of any theological definition. We now stand between two fires, faith and truth. If vampires are real, not as fiction, but as historical beings, then the entire architecture of sin, salvation, and the finality of death must be reconsidered. Could we accept a form of life that requires no blessing? An immortal being that exists without God? A living reminder that humanity is not the center of creation? And in the end, perhaps it is we who are being watched. For centuries, we believed ourselves to be the narrators of the past. But if V_Sangue_3 is real, if that entity still lies beneath layers of forgotten stone in some long-abandoned crypt, then perhaps it is not us who are peering into history, but history itself that is peering back at us. Silently. Patiently. Waiting. For its eyes to open again. The vampire file remains unsolved. But its very existence has left a fracture. Not in the stones beneath San Raffaele, but in humanity's unshakable confidence in what it believes it knows. Because not everything buried was meant to protect us. Sometimes, it was buried to protect itself from us.